Welcome back, my friends, to another episode of TFT Hyperroll with Artark. Now, this build is one that we have done before, and it was the go-to build for a while, especially way back long ago when we were in 12.17 and 12.18 and the early parts of 7.5. They then in 12.19 decided, you know what, we're going to aim at the heart of this build and completely take it apart. And while I did a video earlier showing that it could still work, if you tried forcing it, you found out, yeah, it doesn't work that easily. So this video is how to slide into it when you get something like a Seraphine in the early part of the game and want to go into the Seraphine Carry build, but not quite sure how to do it given the current meta. So for the first augment, there's nothing really exciting. Guardian Heart could work, but you have 2 Guardians as part of the build. You're not going to go to 4, so I just go ahead and grab Celestial Blessing. Now, since you already have 3 key members of the final team, which is Zac, Rakan, and Seraphine, there's a temptation to put them out, but they are not very likely to win early because there's just 1-star champions, and they're going to struggle, especially with the nerfs that have been imposed. So the idea is to find the right combination of champions that will allow you to win. Now we end up with the 2-star Malphite, the 2-star Talia, and then Rakan goes in. Rakan is still a really strong champion, even at 1 star. Now, the original way I would have done this on the old rules was to put Zac in and start building up my Lagoon, because I wasn't too worried about the comp falling apart in the middle. But here I absolutely feel I have to win early, so I need the strongest team possible. For the first item choice, I am thinking about the Seraphine items we're going to need, and one of the key ones is Spear of Sojin. But we can go ahead and put that on Talia so she'll be casting more often. Now, even though you may set up the best team possible, it doesn't necessarily guarantee you're going to win. Sometimes your champions just won't do exactly what you want them to do when they do. In this case, Talia throws her ult, manages to kill Lilia, but it just misses Twitch, and if that first ult had hit, we would have probably won. Now it's time to add Zac in the mix for 2 reasons. It gets our Lagoon bonus going, and it also adds Guardian. Notice I've also locked for Kai'Sa at the bottom, and the reason is that a 2-star Kai'Sa with a Spear of Sojin is going to be stronger than a 2-star Talia with a Spear of Sojin. I have Seraphine and the Crazy Plant Lady just waiting on the bench. Next item choice is really easy, Morello, which is ultimately going to go on Seraphine, but for now we'll go on our item holder. So since we now have a 2-star Kai'Sa, it's time to take out Talia. Goodbye, Talia. Come on, time to go. Put in Kai'Sa, and then put the Seraphine items on her, and we're gonna hold like this until we get a 2-star Seraphine. And again, remember, your strongest team does not mean that it is the strongest team. A double static Shiv, Ezreal is going to do a lot of residual damage across it. And while my Kai'Sa definitely gets a lot of licks in, it's not enough to overcome that. It's time for our next set of augments, and the Axiom arc is a pretty easy choice. This build is going to require a lot of casting and gaining mana back after a kill. That's an easy one. I went ahead and threw a Talia in just during the NPC round so I can improve my casting, then picked up a Zeri. I feel that she is the stronger unit right now for this team, so I go ahead and put her in. So the real key here is that even though this is a Seraphine-focused build, a 2-star Kai'Sa is going to do more damage at this time than a 1-star Seraphine, even with those key items. You can see Kai'Sa's holding up and often setting multiple targets ablaze with her ult, allowing us to keep winning. For our next item after the NPC round, we get the opportunity to make the Protector's Cowl on Zac, which is absolutely also key to this build. Now, I often don't show all the rolling that goes on, but I want to show you this in particular. We get the opportunity to get the 2-star Seraphine. So originally I was going to lock for it, but realized the 2-star Seraphine is going to be what we're ultimately putting in, so we can replace Kai'Sa with Seraphine. Now the 2-star Seraphine with the key items is absolutely key. We can tank up Zac a little bit more and we're ready to go. Now, if I had thrown Seraphine into this match any sooner, likely her heals would not have been enough to keep the team up. She would not have done enough damage and we would have been way behind, but we're holding towards the top of the health charts because I used item holders like Kaisa that fulfilled the same purpose of being a Lagoon, but were able to hold for Seraphine. Now, I picked up a Silas and maybe should have swapped him out for Malphite. The reason is that Whispers is part of this build in that you're ultimately going to have Crazy Plant Lady and Pantheon to at least weaken the opposing team. I decided to keep Malphite in because he was a 2-star and also because he was helping me get more Lagoon gifts. We're able to overcome their Crazy Plant Lady, and then it's time to look at our final augment. The first group of augments weren't exciting to me. Second Wind isn't bad, and I kind of wish after I had rolled that I had not rolled, because Sunfire Board is not really very good since it will block the Morello Nomicon from taking effect while it's still there. You can't stack those debuffs. The Lagoon Crest does me absolutely no good, so I end up just grabbing Salvage Bin as the least offensive of all the possibilities. It at least gives me the opportunity to get item components if I need them. I've gone ahead and put in Aphelios as a placeholder for Graves. This is ultimately going to require Graves for it to work properly, because the key of this build is Graves is going to keep walking forward as it goes on. Seraphine will move with him, keeping him healed the whole time. It's now Treasure Dragon time, and we are looking for Graves items. That's really what we want, is going to be some type of Rage Blade or healing or the ability to make that. Now, we can also separate things out, so we have the ability, thanks to Salvage Bin, to break things down to their components if we need to. The Eternal Winter is rather tempting because it's a really good item, but I really want things that are going to help Graves. At least this has the Hand of Justice, and that's going to be a key part of keeping him healed as well. I've gone ahead now and switched Malphite out for Silas, so we're at least getting some advantage from Whispers, but the real problem in this build right now is that I'm using a 1-star Aphelios instead of a Graves. I'm picking up items as I can and putting them on, but it's not necessarily going to be enough to make up for the fact that we don't have the real power at the back end of this build. But that is the very reason you have to have a friend at Riot. We get Graves just when there didn't seem to be any hope. Now when we sell everything, it's going to break it into components, so we have to put everything back together, which is the Infinity Edge, and then the Hand of Justice. We're reforging the items on Olaf in the hopes that we get stuff we can use that will work on Graves, and just not exactly what we're looking for. But we can make use of a second Hand of Justice for the additional healing. Next item choice is also a real easy one. The Archangel's Staff fits perfectly to Seraphine. Often you'll go with Rabadon's Death Cap, but this one's just as good because it will power up as we go. We managed to 2-star the Graves in between rounds, which is going to be absolutely key. That's the real power in this build, is Graves and Seraphine moving together, her keeping him healed, allowing him to apply additional burn with his attacks, and then letting him just sort of do his thing. And you can see Graves is no match for most things. We are still short a Pantheon and a Yasuo, and probably a Bard I would want to add as well, but you can see it's just working beautifully. Seraphine stays with Graves most of the time, which allows him to just rip the opposing team apart, destroying the damage charts, and helping to carry us into the top 4. During the NPC round, we got our gold 3-star Zeri, and then we're able to pick up a Zeke's Herald that we can put on her, which will speed up Graves and Crazy Plant Lady's attack. We finally found a Pantheon, but we're still a little mishmash in the middle here, as we have 2 Rakans sitting in and an Olaf sitting in for what we would like to be a Yasuo. But even though we're still not complete, we have our 3 key champions, which is Zac, Seraphine and Graves. You hope they stay together because they're going to heal each other, but in this case, their Zippy jumping into the back line ended up distracting Seraphine and keeping her in back, allowing Graves to just wander off on his own and get himself killed. Luckily, the rest of the team was able to hold it together and finish that person off. We managed to finally find our Yasuo, and so now we are looking at the complete team. You could trade Bard for Soraka depending on the circumstances. In this case, I wanted to keep Bard in because this is a big dragon team, and if I can hold them up even for a moment, that's going to be key, because if Ao Shin casts, well, y'all know what can happen. But Graves is able to get into their backline and just wreck them. I'm finally able to 2-star my Pantheon, check in with them, and they have dropped the 3rd dragon and are just focusing mainly on their Mirage build. I moved some stuff around just to kind of deflect from whatever they're going to try and do, and they had shifted as well. The key here is going to be Graves, and let me just say in general, don't force this build. If you get an early Seraphine or other elements of it, then you can slide into it the way I showed here. But don't try to force it. It really doesn't work that well when you start from nothing. But I hope you enjoyed this video and watching it all get put together, and that it helps you along the way. And as always, have an absolutely awesome day.